Hey everyone! Today we're diving into a strange story that not everyone knows about. A dark secret that even the people involved didn't dare to reveal. You might think you've seen it all in reality TV shows, but you'd never guess what's hidden behind the spotlight. Imagine one evening at the Dunes Hotel Las Vegas in 1975, a custom-made golf club for Bob Hope was brought out for auction. And that was just the beginning of a story no one could have predicted. We're talking about bloody struggles, hidden plots that no one could have imagined. And then there's Rickharrison, who became a household name on Pawn Stars with his sharp wit and business acumen, now lying in a prison infirmary just a step away from death. The stabbing occurred in his very own cell in a high-security solitary confinement block, which was supposedly the most tightly controlled area of the prison. There were no surveillance cameras, no witnesses, no weapons recovered. This wasn't your typical prison attack, but rather a carefully staged event where everything was covered up perfectly and the real story remains known only to a select few. If you find this story interesting, leave a comment with the number 1. If not, leave a comment with the number 0. Don't forget to hit the like button, share this video with your friends, and leave a comment below to let us know your thoughts. And if you haven't subscribed yet, be sure to click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our next exciting videos. Let's dive into the story right now. Days later, Corey revealed something that shocked the entire nation. Someone wanted my dad to die to silence him. And why? Because Rickharrison held secrets that, according to Corey, could bring down an underground network where the most powerful names hide behind kindness and fame. Chumley, Rick's longtime friend, had given a chilling warning before it happened. If he speaks, they will kill him right now. And that warning turned out to be entirely true. The public faces a serious question. Is Rickharrison truly the last living link in this dark network? And if so, who is pulling the strings within the prison system to ensure he never speaks again? Is this a deliberate murder plot or just the opening act for an even darker truth about to be revealed? Join us as we search for the answers in today's video. The current situation, the eerie silence when Rickharrison was found lying in a pool of his own blood on the cold concrete floor of his cell F12 at the Black Ridge High Correctional Facility. 3 deep stab wounds, one beneath the shoulder blade, one grazing the kidney, and one through the chest, leaving him critically injured but alive. According to prison medical staff, what puzzled investigators most was the complete absence of basic security measures. No functioning surveillance cameras in the area at the time of the attack. No witnesses stepping forward. No screams for help. No weapons recovered. And the most alarming detail, not a single inmate in the solitary confinement block reported anything. Rickharrison, the man who had constantly spoken before the television cameras, was now completely silent. Not because he couldn't speak, but seemingly because he was crying. Not the nurses in the special care unit described him as a living ghost. Eyes wide open but unblinking, hands gripping the bed, unwilling or unable to communicate verbally or in writing. When asked, he simply shook his head. According to a forensic psychologist specializing in high-risk prisoners, such profound silence indicates a systematic threat where the victim understands that any attempt to speak could be a fatal mistake. From the prison management's perspective, the incident was initially categorized as an internal matter. The attack was under investigation, but behind the bureaucratic veil was a disturbing pattern. On the day of the attack, the 2 guards assigned to watch over Block F were replaced at the last minute with staff without fixed positions due to personal reasons. All hallway cameras mysteriously malfunctioned due to persistent software errors, and motion detectors in cell F112 recorded no disturbance. A series of coincidental failures like these, according to veteran prison investigators, indicate a coordinated conspiracy. Why didn't Rick fight back? Why didn't he trigger the emergency alarm or scream for help? Sources within the staff report a new scratch on his thumb showing a desperate attempt to press the call button, but still no response. If the perpetrator was another inmate, they carried out the crime with the precision of a professional agent. If it was an insider, investigations confirmed that Rick's life had been entrusted to those determined to silence him forever. No one knows who stabbed Rickharrison, but everyone understands why he possessed dangerous knowledge that someone was willing to compromise the entire federal prison security system to keep him silent. And now, although he remains alive, his silence still carries its own danger. A truth locked tight inside a frail body behind prison walls where the enemy could be anyone, even those in official uniforms. Rickharrison is no longer just a defendant awaiting sentencing. He has become a living witness, and that status places him in more danger than ever, with the justice system unable to protect him and prison staff unable to explain the technical failures. On that fateful night, there was only one person brave enough to speak up. His son, Corey Harrison. But before Corey could reveal everything, he had to face a life or death question. Would his father be slowly killed because of past crimes or because of the truths that still hadn't come to light? Corey Harrison, the survivor of the truth, when the call came at 6:47 a.m. Corey Harrison was sitting alone in his suburban kitchen, the coffee cup untouched. The voice on the other end of the line simply said, one sentence. Your dad has been stabbed in prison. He is in critical condition. No explanation, no details, just one knife wound to the heart. The son still reeling from his father's life sentence. At that moment, Corey realized that Chumley's warning wasn't just a paranoid fantasy. Months before Rick was sentenced, Chumley, a longtime friend of both Rick and Corey on Pawnstars, had pulled Corey aside in the store one late night under dim lights. His voice was urgent. If he speaks, they will kill him. This was no longer a family drama. Corey tried to laugh, thinking his friend had fallen for some conspiracy theory. Now with his father's blood on the floor, he knew otherwise. Corey remembered Rick had mentioned a meeting with government lawyers before the trial. He didn't give details, but Rick's demeanor was not that of someone begging for mercy, but rather someone gambling. He told me everything could end soon, the best way for everyone, Corey said. I thought he meant negotiating a lighter sentence, but now such assumptions seemed trivial. Corey understood that whatever Rick was about to reveal or simply threatened to reveal had nearly cost him his life in the safest prison in America. Corey was no stranger to the spotlight. He had been hailed as the young heir to the most famous porn empire in Las Vegas. Known for his sharp negotiating skills and memorable witty remarks. But when he sat in front of the camera after the stabbing, his confident exterior vanished. His voice was strengthened by resolve, his eyes broken. I used to trust my father without question, he admitted. I thought he taught me right from wrong. But when he looked at me in court and said, "It's okay, son," I realized he was protecting someone else, not me. He began connecting the events he had seen but dared not question. Rick had locked the office door for hours, made late-night phone calls to shady partners no one in the company could name, and a thick package Rick had given Corey was marked with the signed contract for shipping artwork. Corey had signed it many times and now feared he had unwittingly legalized dirty money, helping to fuel the entire underground operation. Then Chumley reappeared. No media leaks, no alibi fabricated, but with only one item. A small USB drive wrapped in aluminum foil. Keep this, Chumley whispered. Open it if he disappears or if you feel like you're being followed. Corey had dismissed it as paranoia, but when he heard about the stabbing, he didn't hesitate. On the drive was an encrypted file with emails, travel logs, images, bank accounts, and the most damning item, a chart of powerful individuals directly or indirectly linked to Rick Harrison. Some names immediately stood out. Jay-Z, Oprah Winfrey, Tom Hanks, Steve Harvey. But there were others, executives of charities, media directors of NAS International, even 2 former U.S. Department of Justice officials. At that point, Corey realized that his father wasn't just convicted for personal wrongdoings. Rick was a key link in a network spanning the media, entertainment, and international aid sectors. And when Rick hesitated, hinting that he might cooperate, it was that very system that rang the alarm bells about the price to pay. Corey didn't know how much longer Rick would survive, nor was he sure he could protect his family from what was about to happen. But there was one undeniable truth. The secrets his father had kept for years had become dangerous. And now that they were out, they had become deadly and silence had become the greatest threat. In a later interview, Corey said, "I'm not a hero. I'm the son of a man who was once a hero, then became a criminal. But if I don't speak out, no one will." At that moment, everything changed. A story about a fallen TV star had turned into a major indictment with Rickharrison at the center. But his survival now depended on the words he had never had the chance to speak. The USB drive was the deadly silent evidence, the one that Chumley had given to Corey Harrison. At first, it seemed meaningless, just a small object tucked in a drawer wrapped in crumpled foil with no ribbon. But after Rick was stabbed in prison, Corey's survival instincts kicked in and he decided to open it. As his laptop screen flickered, what he saw went beyond simple suspicion. It was evidence, not the kind you'd expect in a courtroom, but evidence so dangerous that anyone caught possessing it could disappear without a trace. The top folder of the drive was ominously titled Drift Protocol 13. Inside were neatly organized subfolders, encrypted wireless logs, verified facial recognition, partner DB lists, and cold backup audio recordings. Corey sat in the dark, soft light casting on the wall where a framed photo of his father smiling confidently in a scene from a porn star TV show once hung. The image now choked him. In the encrypted emails were dozens of coded exchanges between Rick and anonymous addresses. Although the names were redacted, the writing style, technical terms, and unique symbols revealed a sophisticated media network where the landing spots of shipments and third-level security codes had nothing to do with antiques or cash. One message read, "Confirm appearance of IS-1 child lot 3 using a cover to check movement before third cycle." The FBI identified IS-1 as Isla Iona, suspected to be a human trafficking hub in a global network. The most horrifying continents lay in the DB faces. Dozens of photos taken in dimly lit rooms, each one framing a young face, mostly teens with lifeless eyes. Beneath each portrait was an identification code CB013THM4JC Cycle 5. Some notes on compliance levels. Emotional training completed. Destination Compound RH. Corey couldn't bear to look further. He closed the laptop, removed the drive, and locked it away safely. But in his mind, 1,000 questions raced. Did his father keep a copy? Or had Rick shared this data? This was exactly why he became a target, not just for what he had done, but for what he knew. And if Rick spoke, fame, fortune, and power could all vanish. Corey realized that the stabbing in prison might not be a threat, but the final end. After Corey anonymously handed a copy of the drive to a group of investigative journalists, the decoded wireless logs revealed at least 17 transfers from an account labeled SCF matching Sean Carter Foundation to entities in Beast and ST. Kits, including a transfer of $870,000 marked as logistical development for youth. Another note read, processed through RH Shell, confirmed by a circle without full decoding. The journalists uncovered a truth that went beyond Rick Harrison. It was a chain involving celebrities and political organizations, entertainment, nonprofits, and global shipping corporations. Rick was merely an intermediary, someone who knew too much, held too much, and was too close to the intersection of money and crime. Worse, he no longer controlled this information. Corey had acted, and if this information spread, Corey, the only son, would be next. Corey later admitted that he didn't know what to do with the USB. Give it to the FBI. He believed no one would leak it to the press, risking exposing himself and his family. Every option was a gamble with his life. But he knew this. They didn't want my father alive because he could talk. But if I stay silent, everything will die with him and those people will walk away as if nothing happened. What Corey feared most wasn't the data itself, but the deafening silence from those who could hold him accountable. No threats, no public offers, no response when he sent a test email to one of the addresses on the drive. Their silence was the clearest message. We know what you have and we are watching. Since then, Corey had ramped up his family's security, hired lawyers, and moved his son to live with his mother for protection. But he knew if his dad was attacked before he spoke a word, I would be next. Because now I can speak for him that USB is a ticking time bomb. Rickharrison was once the epitome of an American icon, a trustworthy TV personality, now clinging to life in a prison infirmary, unsure whether he would ever wake up. And Corey, standing at the crossroads of crime and truth, was thrust into the role of an unwilling witness tasked with protecting a cache strong enough to bring down a power structure that had existed for decades. Rickharrison knew what made them act this way. To understand why Rick's life became the target of silencing, we must face a simple yet painful truth. He knew too much. Not just a participant, Rick played the role of the linchpin in an international money laundering and human trafficking network, collecting hundreds of leads and thousands of details over more than a decade. He wasn't the mastermind, but that was precisely why he was a witness who had seen things firsthand. What he possessed wasn't just courtroom evidence, but intelligence that could ruin the reputations, careers, and freedoms of the most powerful figures at the height of influence. Among the documents Corey released was a list of partners Rick had coded in his personal notes. Independent investigators have since decoded some of these abbreviations. Jay-Z matches with Shaw Carter. JZF links to Oprah's foundation with mentions of money transfers from Cyprus to Greece coinciding with the mysterious granting of honorary Greek citizenship to Tom Hanks and SH Media Payment Production, transferred through Mayfield Holdings linked to Steve Harvey. This work network also extended to multiple NASA's operations across Africa, Southeast Asia, and the Caribbean, areas lacking financial oversight and lax immigration laws. Allocated aid was manipulated. Education grants and humanitarian summer camps were euphemisms for trafficking live assets, children, and women. Each transaction from these famous charity funds was meticulously recorded. For instance, $470,000 was transferred from SCF, labeled as logistics, for exchanging young talent, with another $310,000 from Oprah Youth Vision, carrying notes for licensing of the facilitator for the island-based Guaranteed IS-1. These weren't vague donations, but complete commercial payments with routing instructions, annotations, and designated handlers. A leaked email rescued from Corey's USB showed Rick writing to an anonymous address linked to a talent agency in Los Angeles. TH and Jay-Z had confirmed that the next shipment was to be sent to the camp by the 12th. RH would handle the logistics. This message proved Rick did more than just keep the books. He coordinated and executed operations, and importantly, he could recount every detail of each individual in the chain, making Rickharrison a threat to those still hiding. He was not a washed-up porn star. He was a real threat and someone who had nearly been erased. When Rick hinted to investigators that he might trade information for a lighter sentence, a source close to Rick stated that he had even requested a secret meeting with a representative from the Department of Homeland Security bypassing the FBI to surrender account lists and VIP records in exchange for house arrest due to health reasons. But before that meeting could take place, he was stabbed. The prison world does not tolerate traitors. But who betrayed Rick? It wasn't his fellow inmates, but those outside whom he once called associates, friends, and VIP clients in Essie's notebook, part of which was titled Core Clearance List with a warning will never have to go to court unless RH allows. That single entry says it all. While the media focused on Rick's scandal and the public only saw a criminal, the system he served remained intact, sophisticated, silent, and resilient. Rick didn't create the network. He ran it. And like any operation, those who understand its mechanisms are also those who can destroy it. The man holding the knife in Rick's cell may have been an inmate. But the true commander sitting behind bars could be a music producer, a TV host, a movie star, or a human rights speaker. All with the same motive: to erase the secrets Rickharrison nearly spoke out loud. Rick might have planned to expose everything or maybe not. But in their eyes, that possibility was too dangerous. And like all dark networks, one rule never changes. No one is allowed to shed light on the darkness. Today, Rickharrison is still alive, but under constant surveillance, isolated and threatened with being silenced. And Corey, now understanding everything, faces the hardest decision of his life. Stay silent and survive, or speak out and become the next target. Corey once said, "They didn't stab my father because of his past. They stabbed him because he could be the future of the truth." This harsh reality forced everyone from prison guards to journalists to ask themselves, if Rick were alive, would he dare to speak? Without cameras, preventing crime without leaving a trace. When Rickharrison was stabbed in his F-12 cell at Black Ridge Correctional Facility, many thought it was just the predictable violence of a high-profile sentence in the prison system. A celebrity locked up for human trafficking was an easy target for revenge. But that morning's attack showed no signs of a spontaneous assault. No surveillance cameras, no patrolling guards, no shouting in the hallway, and the crude plastic handle of the knife was never found. All signs pointed to a meticulously staged execution. The first public shock came when it was revealed that all 3 cameras facing F Block had mysteriously gone offline. Internal reports later attributed the power outage to a technical glitch recorded 3 days earlier. But in a high-security federal prison, such an incident going unnoticed for 72 hours was almost impossible. If you find this story fascinating and want to learn more, don't forget to hit the like button, share the video, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on other exciting videos. Now, let's continue with the story. Even more telling was that 2 guards scheduled to oversee the block had suddenly been replaced by temporary staff for personal reasons, leaving the area unmanned for nearly 30 minutes. When investigators pressed officials for an explanation, they received only silence. Rick was injured 3 times, a punctured lung, a punctured kidney, and a graze to the main artery. According to his treating physician, this wasn't a warning shot or a crime of passion, but a targeted attack on vital areas with surgical precision, requiring basic anatomical knowledge and clear intent to silence him permanently. The deeper the investigators dug, the clearer it became that the killer didn't need to kill Rick immediately, but only to ensure he could never speak the truth in a brutal and refined way, erasing any evidence in a modern, tightly controlled prison like Black Ridge. Smuggling weapons, isolating a high-risk inmate, and carrying out an attack without leaving traces would be impossible without collusion. An anonymous former guard bluntly stated, "If the cameras go dark, the guards disappear, and no one hears anything, then it didn't happen." History provides a grim precedent in the Epstein case. A billionaire accused of running a global human trafficking ring where a prison suicide happened in a camera blind spot without witnesses or clear evidence of how a lawyer was formed. Now, the script had repeated. A high-profile inmate, conveniently unsupervised, was found seriously injured. Rick had filed a request 6 days earlier to be transferred to an isolated cell due to credible threats from fellow inmates, but his request was denied due to lack of specific evidence. 6 days later, he was found unconscious on the cold concrete floor, his prison uniform soaked in blood. All signs showed he sensed the danger, but the system turned a blind eye. What truly happened in F Block that day remains a mystery. Investigators released some details either because their case was ongoing or because some truths were too dangerous to disclose. Whispers from prison medical staff accused Rick of waking up completely silent, refusing to speak or write. Some speculated he had been threatened into silence. Others believed he realized that one more word could seal his fate forever. For most prisoners, such an attack would be considered generational violence. But not here. Not with Rickharrison, a man who knew about secret networks that the country wasn't ready to face. A week before the stabbing, he had officially petitioned his lawyer to reopen discussions with the authorities about unindicted associates. Now, the blood had been wiped away, the walls repainted, the weapon disappeared into an unchecked locker. The crime remained. No cameras, no witnesses, no traces. Just one question echoing down the hall. Who ordered Rickharrison to be silenced? And how many more must be threatened? Right after Corey Harrison's first televised interview aired, in which he revealed the existence of the USB drive that Chumley had given him, along with the chilling warning that his life was now surrounded not just by calls from reporters and emails from TV networks, but by a more troubling silence interspersed with clear threats. Strange cars with no license plates started parking outside his house at night. Engines idling for minutes before disappearing without a trace. Then came unsigned letters slipped into his mailbox, each containing a single message clipped from old newspaper headlines. Don't let the past kill the present. Corey realized that while his father lay injured in the prison infirmary, he himself was on the front lines of a much deadlier conflict. Rick was a controlled inmate. Corey held the key to the secret, the USB data copies, the notes Rick might have sent. He had become the living symbol of the leak, the only person capable of naming those public figures who had never appeared on the public stage. And that was utterly unacceptable for those who relied on Rick's silence to conceal their fame, fortune, and political influence. After receiving 2 more subtle threats, one directed at his son's preschool and another posted on the front door of his mother's house, Corey took action. Under FBI escort, his family was relocated to an undisclosed safe location. He hired a professional security team, installed a 4-layer alarm system, and set up AI-controlled facial recognition cameras in every corner of the house. But what kept him awake at night wasn't knowing he was being watched, but realizing he was up against a force so deeply rooted that even the government couldn't fully control it. In an exclusive encrypted podcast for independent investigators, Corey confessed that he never thought he would have to live in silence. He wasn't silenced by the law, but by the fear that just one more word could cost his loved ones their lives. The contents of the USB, which he explained, were far more than scattered emails or financial logs. It mapped out an entire operational network, flight routes, travel schedules, minor child identification codes, and internal charity account numbers, all linking back to a human trafficking infrastructure disguised as humanitarian aid. There was still one folder he hadn't opened. F-122 Logic X triple encrypted and only accessible via biometric keys or Rick's secondary USB drive that he never shared. Corey worried that if anything inside was worth hiding so carefully, that might be the real reason they tried to kill his father and why he could be the next victim. In a brief press statement after Rick's attack, Corey's eyes were hollow, but his voice was resolute. "I'm not afraid anymore. I only have one choice. Stay silent as they want or ensure nothing can be buried anymore." When asked, "Who are they?" he refused to answer, but his steely gaze said more than words ever could. Independent journalists who had reviewed part of the scan from the USB report titled Sleepless Nights, a reporter in Texas said, "In 17 years of reporting, I've never read files that made me jump out of my seat at 3 a.m. The emails referenced coordinating human cargo shipments at IS-1, ensuring the DRFDC flight paths remained undetected, and wire transfers of millions of dollars from entertainment-related funds. A snippet ordered, "Do not use local children's images in this cycle. Prioritize Group LQ born 2008-2010. Clearly, these assets were selected, groomed, and trafficked like commodities. Though Corey wasn't physically attacked, he lived as prey, haunted not by the press or justice, but by the people Rick once served or threatened. They could black out prison cameras for 3 days, swap guards on the train, and erase the truth with a car accident, a mysterious stroke, or an unmarked early retirement. This story is no longer about Rickharrison being stabbed or what he knew, but about what Rick left behind and who now holds Corey, making him once a familiar face on TV, the next target in the war to keep silence." From an entertainment show to an underground network, Pawnstars. With hundreds of episodes on the History Channel, long hailed for its educational and entertaining content through Rickharrison's wit and business acumen, many believe the show unified American historical values and business spirit. What no one realized was that behind every negotiation of a coin or a Civil War rifle, there was an unseen layer never aired, a secret network where money and human commodities were managed in ways no viewer could imagine. The documentaries Corey owned, confirmed by independent journalists, revealed that porn stars were just the surface, running a sophisticated system of shell companies, fictitious charities, and cross-border shipping routes, evading all official oversight. Rick was at the center of it all, using his fame as a shield to make illegal deals look legitimate in the public eye. Some entities within Rick's legal files, such as Driftstone Logistics, Silverback Holdings, and Clearpoint Charities, shared one characteristic: no listed employees, no fixed headquarters, and constantly changing legal representatives. The funds transferred through these organizations were labeled as support for education, humanitarian relief, and cultural exchange. But no schools were built, no scholarships awarded, and no project reports published. Charter flights decoded from Rick's hard drives originated from Henderson Executive Airport, Nevada, and landed at destinations like Belize, Philippines, DRFD, Dominican Republic, and many small islands in the Caribbean. Officially, they carried supplies or relief teams, but passenger lists did not match these public purposes. In many cases, unidentified children were coded as exception luggage, unchecked or transferred to local agents by code with annotations easily overlooked out of context, revealing, when reviewed by Corey, an exposed closed-loop network with Rick as the main coordinator. Rick wasn't alone. Names like Jay-Z, Oprah Winfrey, Tom Hanks, and Steve Harvey sporadically appeared in emails, financial records, personnel arrangements, and donations from funds bearing their names or family names. While the level of involvement of each individual is still under investigation, it's clear they all share one motive: keeping Rick's silence. And when Rick could no longer protect himself after the stabbing, the world's attention shifted to the one person left. It can be said that Corey, although Rick supervised the activities of many legal experts, believes he is not the mastermind of the entire network. His role is a logistical link connecting top financiers, high-profile donors with land-based trafficking groups, and local crime syndicates, which made Rick expendable and the main sacrificial pawn if the system faced an internal threat. In this way, Rick's legacy is not only the evidence he left behind, but also a reflection of the entire dark machinery where television money and human lives intertwine under cold transaction codes.